Yeah. Run it up, Blondo. Run it up, Blondo.
The Orlando Magic pulled out all stops in order to ensure the best odds of landing a top 3 pick in this year's draft lottery. From questionable fourth quarter lineups in close games to holding out Jonathan Isaac for the entire season, the Magic put on a tanking clinic this year. If you look at the top 2 projected picks in this year's draft, then you wouldn't be surprised why. Jabari Smith Jr. and Chet Holmgren tick all the boxes of a prospect that Magic team president Jeff Weltman and GM John Hammond both prefer. High IQ two-way players who are unselfish, competitive, have the potential to become stars, and of course, extremely lengthy for their height and position. I'm almost certain that Jabari and Chet are the 2 names on top of Weltman's draft board. If the Magic get the 2nd or 3rd pick, then they'll look to move up to take whomever of the 2 will be available, and they'll have their work cut out for them if they do land the 1st overall pick, hopefully. From what I've gathered from interacting with Magic fans online, Jabari Smith Jr. is a preferred prospect. You see, Jabari is a safe pick while still having the potential of being a star player. Magic fans are divided with Chet Holmgren, and I don't blame anyone for their opinions because Chet is one of the most polarizing prospects in NBA draft history. You either believe in his potential or you don't. And those who don't believe in him have the same concerns, and I'm going to try my best to address all of them in this video. Why? Well, I genuinely believe that our front office is high on Chet, like I said earlier, and there's going to be a good chance that he'll be on the Magic next year if all goes to plan in the draft lottery. As of right now, the Magic don't have a future franchise cornerstone prospect. Franz Wagner can develop into one, but he'll have to improve his finishing around the rim and his assertiveness, but that's a topic for another video. And that's why the Magic need to draft the prospect with the highest upside despite his floor, and Chet Holmgren is that prospect in this draft. There's a reason why I've done research on Chet and basically talked myself into believing in him, and that's what I'm going to try to do for all Magic fans who are still on the fence about the Magic drafting him. But before I address some concerns about Chet, I'm going to first break down his game and what he could potentially bring to the current Orlando Magic team. In a nutshell, the appeal of Chet Holmgren is that he's a 7'1" unicorn who can bring the ball up and pull up or go straight coast to coast. In the half court, he can make good reads, shoot spot up threes, and shoot off the dribble without it looking unnatural. He can also anchor his team's defense with his elite ability to protect the rim, and it's not all theoretical with him like Mo Bamba or Poku because Holmgren has shown the ability to do all of those things on multiple occasions in college. The main reason why you draft a prospect like Chet is because of his rim protection both as a 5 in the future or as a 4 being the weak side shot blocker, and not in a physical way like Dwight or Ben Wallace, but more in a finesse, more modern way like Rudy Gobert, Bam Adebayo, and Evan Mobley. Around the basket, Chet was exceptional as he held opponents to just 31% shooting against him. He has great timing on blocks and good jumping verticality. The best part about his blocks is that they usually wind up in his hands or in the hands of his teammates instead of it being swatted away out of bounds. If Chet plays a 4, then he'll instantly become one of the best weak side shot blockers in the league. His freakishly long limbs makes him intimidating despite his skinny frame and helps him take up a lot of space quickly to rotate back and contest shots. He posted an insane 3.3 blocks per game and had a block percentage that rivaled Anthony Davis when he was at Kentucky. More importantly, his pick and roll defense is also elite. Check out some of these stats. When defending the roll man in the pick and roll, Chet held opponents to just 18% shooting. He switched on well to pick and roll ball handlers and held them to just 44% shooting. Additionally, opponents shot only 32% when Chet was guarding dribble handoffs and only 32% when they were matched up with Chet in isolation. Teams in the NBA will probably run post-ups against Chet thinking that he's soft and weak, but that won't be a good idea because in college, opponents shot only 40% against him on post-ups. Now, he was beat off the dribble by quicker players, but he's long enough to recover and contest. Some of it was intentional because his 7'6" wingspan lets him get away with it. Now, if you're asking why Gonzaga wasn't great defensively as a whole last season, then the answer is pretty simple. Gonzaga only had 2 good defenders on their roster, Chet and Rasir Bolton. Without Chet, Gonzaga wouldn't have been close to a first seed last season. And with the Magic, he'll be relieved to know that he'll have Franz, J.I., Wendell, or Chuma to help cover for him while also having Jalen, RJ, and Markel's length out on the perimeter to restrict guards from entering the paint. He won't have to compensate for the Drew Timmies of the world because Weltham will never ever go near a player as slow and outdated like Timmy. On offense, Chet is more of a work in progress, although he has the skills of being extremely productive on that end as well. The first thing that pops out is Chet's effectiveness out on the fast break, as he ranked in the 97th percentile in transition scoring. He loves to bring the ball up and pull up for open threes, and also like Wendell, he's a sniper when shooting open threes as a trailer, and in transition threes in total, he shot a blistering 47%. Around the rim, Holmgren ranked in the 99th percentile, and that was 80 makes out of 100. I don't care how skinny you are, if you can convert that efficiently around the rim, then that's bound to translate to the pros. Chet has a soft touch around the rim, and when attacking his opponent, he can absorb contact well, especially for his skinny frame. He can put the ball on the floor, spin away from his defender, and put up one-handed floaters like Franz Wagner. And he also has great hands to catch pocket, drop, or alley-oop passes from the dunker spot. I feel as if Gonzaga didn't utilize all of his strengths. I wanted to see him show more of his isolation ability, but he only shot 3% of his shots from isolation. So therefore, it's tough to analyze his effectiveness on isolations, but he has a decent face-up game, can hit step backs, turn around jumpers over both shoulders, and can take bigs off the dribble without any hassle. Now, he needs to show that he can do those things more often in the future, but the foundation is there. Defenses in the NBA will also have to respect his outside shot, because he shot nearly 40% on 3.3 attempts from beyond the arc. With his ability to stretch the floor, he'll be able to attack closeouts, hit mid-range shots, and also head to the rim with all the space that will be available for him in the NBA. He's also effective off the ball. Being fluid for his size allows him to cover a lot of ground on cuts, and it showed as he shot 28 for 35 on cuts towards the rim. His fluidity also allows him to move well off the ball for open threes. As a passer, Chet projects to be a good secondary playmaker on offense. He can facilitate from the high post or elbow spots by finding backdoor cutters, and he can also find open shooters when handling the ball on the fast break. And surprisingly, he wasn't used that often as a roll man on pick and rolls, as he only ranked in the 47th percentile on those plays. That's something that he'll have to master in today's pick and roll heavy NBA. Now, all of this sounds perfect, right? I've basically described the basketball unicorn in the last few minutes, but unfortunately, there's a reason why Chet is not the surefire #1 pick in this year's draft. He brings a few concerns that could prevent him from reaching his true potential. There are 4 main ones that I'm going to try to debunk for Magic fans, so let's get straight into it. Alright, so the main concern has been rehashed a million times already, and it's about his skinny frame. Look, it's a real concern, I know. However, it won't prevent him from being a good player. Chet may look weak physically, but mentally he's far from that. The dude is tough as nails and never backs down from confrontation. Every scout has said the same thing about him, and if you watch some tape of him, then you'll also agree. There are many opponents in Chet's basketball life, from middle school to college, who have attacked him in force on the court, but each and every time Chet has held his own. Even when he fell down, he got back up and continued to absorb hits until his opponents received the memo that Chet isn't soft and isn't gonna back down. His toughness has helped him compensate for his thin frame at every level of his basketball life, and who's to say that it's gonna stop now? Chet is so skinny that nobody has come up with a good comp for him yet. That brings a lot of uncertainty, I know, but guess what? There's a first for everything. Who would have thought that a 7-foot, nearly 300-pound Serbian would dominate the NBA, be one of the most finesse players, and also one of the best passers in NBA history? And I'm talking about Jokic, of course, and he went in the second round. And that's why sometimes we think about a player's physique too much and look past a player's production. If that player has produced at every level, then that should hold some weight. I remember when people thought Luka Doncic would be too slow to beat defenders off the dribble, despite him dominating the second best league in the world as a teenager. Steph Curry had a memorable NCAA career, but people thought he wasn't explosive enough and also too skinny, and that's why he slipped to the 7th pick. And yeah, his career turned out pretty well if you ask me. Kevin Durant couldn't bench press his own weight during his draft combine, and that brought a lot of concerns, even though he put up historic numbers in college. T-Mac also couldn't bench press his own weight, but he eventually filled into his frame, became stronger, and we all know the rest. Now, I'm not saying that Chet will be a superstar like any of these guys, but I hope you get what I'm trying to say by using them as a cautionary tale of doubting prospects just because of their weight and supposed weak strength. Matter of fact, I'm going to bring up some more examples. Successful rail-thin players like KD, Brandon Ingram, Andrei Kirilenko, Ralph Sampson, Marcus Camby, Pau Gasol, Sean Livingston, etc. all succeeded because they had a great feel for the game, were tough, competitive, and basketball just came natural to them. And Chet falls into that category. guys who Chet is unfairly compared with like Mo Bamba, Poku, Bol Bol, Thon Maker, Andrea Bargnani do not. And this needs to be addressed. We need to stop comparing Chet with those guys. Bol Bol and Mo Bamba don't have any clue of where to be on defense, how to defend pick and rolls, when to rotate to help, and their awareness of the game is not even in the same stratosphere as Chet Holmgren. And I don't need to go on about their low motors, cause Chet does not have one at all. Poku isn't as mobile as Chet, is soft, and has a low basketball IQ. Didn't he shoot 3 for 20 the last time he played the Magic? I'm certain Chet is smart enough to not to continue to shoot if he's having a bad night like Poku had against us. If Poku was all that, then he would have also been a top prospect in this draft like Chet, but he wasn't. Continuing on, I think the whole Chet won't be able to handle the physicality of NBA bigs is way overblown. The good news for Chet is that he plays in the modern NBA and he's going to play as a forward during the first couple of years until he fits into whatever frame that he can in terms of his genetics. He's not going to go up against Charles Barkley, Charles Oakley, Horace Grant, Antonio Davis, you know who he's going to go up against in today's NBA? Power forwards like Jay Crowder, Tobias Harris, in our division, Danilo Gallinari, PJ Washington, PJ Tucker. Hell, Carmelo Anthony was out there playing power forward full time this past season. I'm pretty sure Chet will get by just fine against them. And we can afford to have Chet at the 4 at all times because Wendell has proven that he can play center full time because he's grown into a physical presence down low. He'll also have switchable and lengthy 6'10 forwards in Franz or Chuma and a 7-foot smart defender in JI to help make life as a power forward easy for him. Furthermore, Chet held his own when he was matched up with bigger and stronger players in college. Jalen Duren, who has 55 pounds on Holmgren and already has a physique of a big NBA center, had trouble backing down Chet on several occasions except for that one time when he dunked on Chet after Chet flopped to draw an offensive foul during crunch time. Chet finished with more blocks than Duren had field goals made in that game, so I don't need to say more about that matchup. The University of San Francisco Dons, who made it to the NCAA tournament from the WCC, featured two fifth-year senior bigs who weighed over 245 pounds, and Chet torched them for 21, 15, and 6 blocks without breaking a sweat. Just take a look at what their coach said about Chet and his toughness after the game. Mark Williams, like Jalen Duren, is a highly touted future NBA center prospect, and Chet put up 16-7 against him while going 8 for 10 on 2-pointers made. He also did well on both ends against Paolo Banchero and AJ Griffin in that game as well. Chet will face similar, if not smaller, bigs in the NBA. The only concern that I might have with Chet's weight is if he'll be able to handle tough screens set by the likes of Steven Adams, Ayton, and Nurkic. All those hits from those screens could accumulate and really take a toll on him. In order to prevent that, he'll need to bulk up to at least 240 by his 3rd season. He hasn't had any injury concerns so far, which is a good sign. Kristaps, Porzingis, and JI, for example, had injury problems before the NBA, and it's continued to be a problem for them so far. Certain players are just destined to be injury prone because their body can't handle an 82-game season. To finish off my argument about his frame, Chet will utilize his elite rim protection skills as a weak side defender with either Wendell or JI at the 5. Let Wendell handle the likes of Embiid, Giannis, and Jokic. Thankfully, there aren't many like those around. Here's the bottom line. Chet Holmgren will play power forward in an era where that position is anything but power. And this helps me transition to the other concern that people have with Chet, and that concern is that how can Chet play the 4 if he's supposedly too slow to guard out on the perimeter? Well, for one, Chet is pretty mobile for a 7-footer. He's not Bam, Evan Mobley, or JI level quick, but those 3 are just outliers. There's a reason why we stuck with JI even after multiple lower body injuries, and it's because players with those physical gifts at his size rarely ever come around often. You can't expect a 7'1" player like Chet to be lightning quick. He's mobile enough. And to add, Holmgren's wingspan is reportedly 2 inches longer than Evan Mobley's, so he'll likely make up for his slower speed with his length. He's swift enough to shuffle his feet and move his hips well. Again, not as quick as JI, but still quicker than Mo Bamba, Gobert, Jakob Poeltl, and most players around his size. Let's say that Chet does get beat by Trae Young, for example. He'll still be able to recover and stay with him due to his insane length, IQ, and body control. So yeah, he will get beat by elite offensive players like Trae Young, but so did Evan Mobley during the playing game. And luckily for Chet, those players will have to deal with either Wendell or JI at the rim if Chet fails to disrupt them. And for example, if he's matched up with KD or Brandon Ingram, then his length will still be a problem for them. Nobody can stop them. Like, players like those can only stop themselves, or it'll take a team collectively to stop them, like we saw with Boston against KD in the first round. And by adding Chet, the Magic could potentially have all the pieces that they need to build a defensive powerhouse that could stop superstars in the playoffs in the future. And to add one stat for my argument, whenever Chet was switched onto the ball handler in pick and rolls, he held him to just 44% shooting. Alright, so the third main concern that some may have about Chet is that he dominated a weak conference and therefore we need to take his stats with a grain of salt. And my answer to that is I don't care, and neither should you. Does it really matter if he dominated the likes of Dixie State and Pepperdine? No, what matters is that he was impactful against good teams this past season. Just take a look at some of these stats that draft dummies came up with for portraying Chet's impact against ranked teams. I've already mentioned how good he was against Duke, but he also had a 15-point 4-block game against UCLA, and he also had an amazing sequence like this in that game. And I have to add that the West Coast Conference was the strongest that it's been in a while this past season. St. Mary's, UCF, Santa Clara, and BYU were all tough and had good seasons. Just compare the standings of the WCC from 2018 to now, and you can see the difference. The records of other schools in the WCC weren't that inferior to Gonzaga's this season like they were in recent memory. To conclude this argument, former Gonzaga Bulldog Domantas Sabonis put up similar stats to Chet, and he's worked out pretty well in the NBA, if you ask me. Brandon Clark was a defensive monster and also a beast on the boards at Gonzaga, and that's also translated pretty well to the NBA. His clutch offensive rebounding and defense against Cat in the fourth quarter proved to be the difference for Memphis against Minnesota in the first round. Alright, the last concern that I'm going to talk about is if Chet has a deep enough bag to score one-on-one when teams force him to. The short answer, yes. But the problem is that he didn't get enough opportunities to show his full arsenal at Gonzaga, and to help me disprove this concern with stats, he did display a deep bag in flashes. From what we know, his offensive arsenal consists of spin moves, floaters, Dirk-like fadeaways, turnaround fadeaways over both shoulders, and step-back threes. He also broke out a few Euro steps and hop steps last season as well. Chet also has a mid-range game, but he shot them way more often in high school, so he'll need to prove that he can make those when plays break down in the NBA. And I'm sure that he'll be able to with his nice shooting form, touch, and release. To round off, as I reiterated a bunch of times in this video, you have to look past a prospect's unusual build. You know, if that prospect is too skinny, too fat, too slow, it doesn't matter sometimes. Especially if that prospect has an advanced feel for the game, is tough, and actually loves the game of basketball, then you should always bank on those type of players to succeed despite any physical concerns. I know Chet's frame might scare some of you guys away from really believing in him, but I just want to urge you guys to watch some tape on him first, analyze his stats, and then make your judgments. Jabari Smith Jr. is still number 1 on my board because I just want my team to draft a shooter in the first round for once. I forgot what it's like. We haven't done that since we drafted Courtney Lee way back in 08. But yeah, Chet is not far behind, and I wouldn't be mad if the Magic drafted him number 1 overall. Shaedon Sharpe has shot up to number 3 on my board. He could be a sneaky pick for us since he feels the need and has just as high of a potential as Chet Holmgren. I'm going to make a video on him soon, so look out for that. Thanks for watching this video, and please like, share, and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, because it supports the creation of free Orlando Magic content and increases the presence of Orlando Magic fans online. Thanks for watching, and let's go get that number 1 pick, damn it.